awaiting for us to show up. We have people eagerly awaiting for us to show up. All right, everyone. It is the Real Estate Morning News Show. And are you ready to rumble? This is going to be awesome. We're going to talk asset management, underwriting, the strategies around that are happening right now, and the tools, and why I hate Excel. Excel sucks in this thing. No one needs to be using Excel in real estate anymore. Y'all need to stop it. Cut it out. But, I don't think I'm going to win that argument. And George is here to represent, Excel is awesome side. This is George Bertola. And then we've got Deanie. And we have, I'm going to butcher your name. I'm sorry. I'm like the world's worst. I should have asked how to pronounce your name before. Is it Nankumar? Did I do that right?
Yeah.
I win. Gold star for me. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves, and Songram's going to be here in just a hot second. And so George, Mr. Excel, Birchlaw is in the house. So introduce yourself, George.
Super excited to be part of this conversation. George Birchlaw, I'm the founder of Our Analytics. We're based in Dallas, and we do data management and financial analytics on real estate portfolios. So all of the properties in a real estate portfolio, whether it's 5 properties, 10 properties, or 50 properties, we try to understand the financial analytics on each individual property. So super excited to be part of the conversation today. Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. And Deanie
Taylor, CEO and Chairman of Landmark Healthcare Facilities. We develop outpatient medical buildings all over the country.
That's awesome. Thanks for coming. And Purdue grad, boiler up. Awesome.
Exactly.
And Nan Kumar, hi, welcome.
Hi. So hi, this is Nand Kumar. I'm co-founder at TrueBoard Partners. We are currently based in India and have a representative office out of New York. And we're primarily an asset monitoring firm operating in 3 areas. That's real estate, renewable energy, and in retail collections. And we've made some significant progress on the real estate side, and we'll happy to discuss with the other 2 gentlemen on this show on the pros and cons of online monitoring or Excel versus a tech-enabled platform.
Yes, for sure. I know. I think I'm gonna win on the We Hate Excel. Hey, Sangram, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Sorry, my apologies.
Perfect timing. We're doing introduction, and now it's your turn. So you're take it away, sir.
Awesome. I'm sure Nandu, as we call him, is introduced TrueBoard, but yeah.
Yeah, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, cool. So, me and Nandu represent TrueBoard, which we are trying to address, which Amy hates, which is using spreadsheets for asset management. We have kind of, built a unique platform called TrueGenie, which we now call it, what started as more like a risk monitoring tool, to be honest, is now in last 3 years has evolved into more like a life cycle management platform. So what it does is it sits over all the data, or let me call it data chaos, or whatever kind of type of assets, and converts into a singular screen which has all the KPIs which the user wants to monitor, whether it's financial data, operating data, ESG data, compliance data. And as always say, it doesn't just prescribes, it can also procure medicines. It's just not a prescriptive, it's very proactive. So that in nutshell, that's what we're trying to do. We have recently, of course, we're headquartered in Mumbai, India, but we do have a presence in US. So Nandubai actually kind of spends equal amount of time in US and Mumbai. And so I requested him to join because it's good to have his view as well as in both sides of. And so that's what we do. Manage close to 100 million square feet in India. We just backed our first client in US, mid-sized real estate developer in Midwest. So that's about it. And thanks so much, Amy, for having us here. I've
Yes.
been picking her brains and shamelessly using her network to help us find put foot in US. And thank you so much for that as well. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
no worries. That's what the council is all about. It's all about.
Yes.
So all of the folks here are part of the U.S. PropTech Council. So I will do my plug since
Yeah.
it is my show. If you're not a
Yeah.
member of the U.S. PropTech Council, well, that's just silly, and you should join the council because we connect people all across the United States talking about real estate and innovation. Go to proptechcouncil.com. That's my commercial. I did it. There's my commercial. All right, so we're going to start with Deanie. Deanie's actively developing in the space, and you use Argus, right, Deanie, pretty much for
Yeah.
using it for asset management and underwriting, or what are you using Argus for?
Well, Argus is both on the asset management side, where we're constantly updating information on our buildings, because if you're going to potentially sell those buildings, the first thing the buyer's going to ask for is the Argus files, and they got to be updated. And if you've got a big portfolio, like when I was at the REIT, you don't have time to go back and create all that. You've got to keep it up to date. So that's that just makes sense in how to do the and when you're underwriting for acquisition of buildings, things like that, we always ask for Argus files, because it's like all the analysts are taught that in college. I mean, when they come out, that's all they use.
Well,
and
not
if they don't know it, we don't hire them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And what is Argus? I'm not so. I haven't really used Argus. So yeah.
It's a software that you pay for.
Right.
It's a licensed software, and it's pretty much an industry standard. I mean,
what data is it capturing though? From on the
it has all the tenant information and projects out occupancy and the financials, the NOI, things like that for the building. And it's only as good as the data you put in. I mean, it's out into the future. I mean, you gotta be realistic with it.
Is it capturing like from on the asset management? So all the financials around the loans, the insurance, the building itself, the data around the building itself.
Right. I mean, it's the only way you can get to the NOI. Yeah. But again, you've got to project out into the future the accurate occupancy and expenses, things like that for that building.
Yeah. Okay. That's great.
Now, I'm not, let me be clear. I don't know how to use it. That is why we hire and employ analysts that know how to use it. I know how to read the reports.
That's pretty funny. So what are you using? Do you take I'm assuming if you've got Argus data over time and you're getting the files, if you're doing a new acquisition per se of an existing, it's only for existing buildings, it's not for development, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah. And then the only time we use Excel, and I hate to say this, but is in our modeling for development. We will use Excel to run the models, and they have been built. The models have been built inside the Excel spreadsheets, and it does a good job with that. I there's not a problem with that. But my analysts will tell you I'm just as good with my napkin math as they are with their models. So either way.
Okay. All right. I know. It's one of those things. I can just see it. I just know what it's going to do. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm sure you do, Deanie. All right. George, you've been chomping at the bit over there. I can see you getting all fidgety talking about Excel, man. So, all right, tell us about your solution and what it does.
I've got questions for Deanie first.
Okay. All right.
So say you bought some medical office building, okay? Say you bought it like 5 years ago. Say there was a purchase and sale agreement. Say there was a bunch of closing costs. Say there was some capital in year one that you did a new roof. You replaced the HVAC in year 3. Now it's year 5. And so how do you understand your purchase price, historical costs, and all of that information for each of your properties?
I would tell you first of all, the concern we would have with all of those costs would be projecting those before we closed on the building, because that would impact the purchase price. So we would make those assumptions about those potential CapExes, and then ongoing, we would, in the annual budgets for each of those, the CapEx, we would go ahead and assume we are spending that money that we underwrote as part of the purchase, if it actually is needed when it comes time. And at that point, we would assess the value of the building. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but we do not, at the point of underwriting, we will, when you're buying the building, you basically negotiate the price and the cap rate, and you add in those CapExes that you think will happen. I don't worry about them after we own it, except from budgets.
That is the key. That is my big question. Just repeat that one more time, because I think we're live. You said you do not care about those costs after you close on the building.
Well, I mean, correct? We want to make sure we don't pay too much. We don't want to pay too much for the building. Mm-hmm. So we reduce the price by the expected CapEx. Mm-hmm. But then once we own it,
yes,
we reassess, do we really want to put those capital costs into the building, and is it really required? And if we do, it's in the budget. But we don't reassess the value of the building based on that 2 or 3 years later when that discussion occurs.
So help me understand this. So basically you have an underwriting model, and you thought year 2, you're going to put in $1 million of CapEx, and it's going to take 6 months. So basically, say you bought the building year 2, cost $1.5 million, and it took 9 months. So that obviously affects the return on that investment, right? Because it wasn't how you underwrote it. It's probably going to make the deal worse. You went over budget a little bit, and it took a little longer from an investment standpoint.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, it does impact the return, but you already own the building. And so all we're doing is looking back, and we've done this. We look back at our underwriting after we own the building 2, 3, 4 years. I'll tell you, we're more concerned about the underwriting of occupancy and rent and NOI on the building that we projected out, especially if there was potential vacancy when we bought it and lease up was assumed and things like that, than the CapEx. We're conservative on the front end of building, anticipating more CapEx than we should. And as long as we seldom miss that number. I mean, you need a new roof or you don't.
Yes.
And you know what happens. You don't do it when you underwrote it. You don't actually get the roof on that year. You put it off.
Yeah. So
unless wait, let me ask. So unless it's a part of your financing, right? And like sometimes,
but again, you're right about the financing. But to some extent here, if you're talking about REITs, you're not financing. You're buying it.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah. You boys with all the money, who needs financing?
So in that underwriting model, and you have that Argus the day before you close, everything's great. The assumptions are great. The investor signed off on it. The lender loves it. And you have those assumptions, and it's going to be that 20% return, 15% return, levered return, whatever you think is. And so basically year 1, CapEx went a little over, maybe took a little longer. Year 2, something else happened. Insurance costs, maybe you're higher than you originally underwrote, possibly could happen. Maybe
right.
Taxes.
All those are true. That happens. So, and then you acknowledge that the return is not what it is, but you still got the building. You can't do anything about it.
Well, can you really understand? So when you say the return changes, so does your investor care if they signed off on an underwriting model that was like going to be 18% return, all of a sudden CapEx took a little longer. And so do they say, well, it's not really going to be that 18, it's going to be really 15, or it's going to be 22?
Yep. Every year, some of those key assumptions on CapEx we revisit, and we will maybe change those in our underwriting criteria on the front end for the next year's acquisitions. We're always looking at that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most useful part about keeping, smaller investors. Lots of times they'll do a lot of underwritings that they might not make the leap to where, they're using active asset management tools like George's or Songram's platform, and they're missing out on the richness of the data of every underwriting that they did. They're the active building data that can provide them so they can get better modeling, right? Over time, that's generally what you want to do.
Typically, our analysts will look back and they'll come forward every year toward the end of the year and say, we've been a little bit too conservative on projecting CapEx and some other things, and we think we ought to drop back. That's a leadership decision. Do we want to make that change for the next year's modeling?
Interesting.
That's how that's done.
Danny, how many properties do you own?
Well, at the REIT, we had, when I was inside the REIT, on a medical standpoint, it was, I don't know, 200-300 properties.
Did you have
today, today I don't have near that many as a developer.
Did they have 200 or 300 Argus files for each of those properties?
I would like to say yes, and I told them they should, but no, we didn't have up-to-date Argus on every property.
Okay.
But then when you put a portfolio together to sell, you really wish you did, because there's a lot of work to build that, or you're going to pay some broker a ton of money to do it for you.
That's true.
Or RE Analytics, either one. So
All right. I get it.
We were gonna go there. All right, George, let's do it, buddy. Okay, this is why I hate Excel.
All right, Amy, just know I hope I passed the test of being under the gun of George.
You did. You, Deanie, I was not worried at all. Like, you can handle yourself. Like, trust me, Deanie can hold his own for sure. All right. So here's the deal why I think Excel is and every real estate person needs to get out of Excel, because as AI becomes more prevalent, as we start using sort of modeling or any sort of AI modeling to work on certain things, a lot of the data that needs to be taken care of on buildings from an asset management, whatever it might be, we have a data problem, and Excel is at the root of it. So this is why I hate Excel, and people need to stop using it and start using different data storage technologies and different types of things. That's my personal beef, just because I'm a data aggregator and I hate Excel. But George is here to prove me wrong. And George, you're fighting for the little medium-sized guy, and I get it. And I understand. I was Excel. I did every underwriting in Excel. I did I didn't do asset management, and well, that's not true. Some of it, but and it's great that it's flexible, and it's also bad that it's flexible, because you can, have a formula go wrong in one little cell, and you think it's right, but you don't know that it's wrong, and you're providing returns to your investors of these crazy, wild IRRs, and you're like, oh wow, well, that's a really good deal, let's do that one, and you don't realize that your formula is effed up. So those are all my pain points with Excel. George, your turn.
The thing is, Excel is great. You don't want it to be flexible. So
I know.
That is the key, to not make it flexible, to only make it have inputs, because I think that the challenge is real estate people are wired to understand Excel. So if you tell a real estate investor that owns a building, they've already owned it for 3 years and they're going to hold it for another 4 more years, and you tell the real estate investor it's going to be a 25% IRR, he's going to say, great, show me the Excel model. His brain is wired to that mindset. So you can't say maybe AI told me it was going to be a 25% return. He's going to say the purchase price was 3 years ago, 2 million. Yeah, that was right. We had closing costs. Yeah. Year two, we had a bad NOI. I remember that. Oh yeah, that CapEx for the parking lot was $1 million. Perfect. That gets me to today. And then going forward, we're going to refinance. Boy, that's tricky to understand. I need to understand it's a cash in or cash out refinance. Oh yeah, it's a variable rate loan, so I'm going to bump up the interest rate. And then, oh yeah, sell it at 7 cap, no, 6.5 cap, and then the closing cost is going to be $2 million. No, I changed my mind, $1 million. How do you prove up to an investor to say all this is going to happen cleanly and easily to say, yes, that's going to be a 22.5% return?
So whether it's visually displayed in Excel or visually displayed in a database format, what's the difference? Like, why does it have to be visually displayed in Excel?
Excel was made to do financial calculations. That is what it's geared to do. Financial calculations, not data aggregating. So that's where people kind of maybe go off and say, I've got 10 properties and I need to understand the property taxes in all 10 properties. Hey, I have a great idea. I'm going to create an Excel file and track all it. That is where Excel goes astray. It's like using PowerPoint to type up a 30-page research paper. You can do it, but it's not the best tool. So Excel is for financial calculations. So if you only use it for financial calculations, it is ideal. Anything else is like using PowerPoint to type up a 30-page research paper.
Sangram, do you agree?
George, again, partly with you, I would say. We had a similar problem here as well, where people are so wired to look at Excel. So what we have done is, and which I think we have reasonably successful, is the visualization layer. We have actually made it look like Excel. So while all the and actually, you'll be surprised that this was one of the change requests from a client saying, I want my visual layer to be look like Excel because my whole team is wired towards Excel. So, so that partly agree because, I literally built my career, and I'm sure Nandu also has built a career using spreadsheets. So nothing to give it that. But I think now with these tools coming in, I think there are enough opportunities for people to have options where they can look at alternative tools, which are less error prone, because what happens is over a period of time, the spreadsheet just becomes too big to handle. And people who have created those spreadsheet literally think it's their IP or their moat to survive in the organization. So they just really don't pass on. I've seen enough organization where the the employee just left who knew everything about the Excel, and someone had to really struggle to find out. Yeah. Yeah. So,
I say the same exact thing every time I
yeah,
talk to a prospect.
correct.
Almost word for word what you just
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. So I think there is a middle path. I think it will take maybe a generation to change, but someone has to make that change. I think we are taking that first step. Hopefully, as all this, famously Gen AI tools which are coming, which will make the user interaction, the plug and play. Because the only challenge with my challenge with Excel, it doesn't give you too much to play around with, right? So now, for example, if you want to do a what if analysis, it's very difficult to do in Excel. Which, like for example, we're happy to sync up and walk you through what you have developed. We can do that. It's okay, interested going southwards, whatever. Those variables can you play around with. But you're right, ultimately people want to see a visualization layer which looks like Excel because it gives them that comfort, maybe adds the stamp of authenticity. It looks like, as you rightly said, great example. If I want to read a Word document in PowerPoint? I may not. I just want to see it in Word because I feel it's more authentic. But yeah, so that's where we are on the journey, George, to be honest, and everyone. But I think we are getting some early wins. Too early to wave the victory flag yet, but we are getting, people to believe in the platform, but they still want to see output or visual layer as look like a tabular form like spreadsheet. Yeah. Nothing to take away, but yeah, slowly, hopefully.
Yeah, and
Maybe
I
a few
think
years down the line. Yeah.
yeah, I think so. Asset management, even in real estate, has multiple definitions
Yes.
depending on if you are the property owner sponsor, or if you're an LP, or depending on your investment vehicle, you're going to have different functionalities that need to happen
Yeah.
as an asset manager, right? It's the most complicated thing ever. And so you can say you're an asset management tool, but you're really focused on more property level specific data, managing. And then you could also be an asset management tool and be focused on institutional, private, and they're managing different levels of information. I don't think any of that should be in Excel, but I can't. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to win this argument. But
Add to what you said, just to add. So whatever George said, and we heard over here, right? All of these things that that can be done on Excel can be done on the platform that we have developed.
yeah.
Okay, and what it does is, if you are on an Excel sheet, and if you, let's say, you are in New York City area, you want to compare as to what your project or your investment is doing to other similar, projects in the area. Our platform allows you to do that. So there is market information that's captured over there. Okay, so what it does in terms of the underwriting assessment is, at the click of a button, okay, you change one variable on the platform, and it calculates the cash flows and your cash on cash return for whatever time period you want to do. So there is a continuous reassessment of the underwriting assumptions that you have made. Okay, so all of that is done. And Sangram said that if the client wants to view the data in an Excel format, that's usable. Some people are comfortable with graphs as to what's happening. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so the platform has the capability to show it in the form of this thing. You can download the entire report in the form of PDF, right? And especially while the two gentlemen we have over here, I have spent 30 years exactly doing what you have, and I'm completely with you. Whatever the analyst does, it's all wired in our brains to tell them exactly that where they are wrong on a calculator, right? But in today's world, when there are multiple projects on which you want to see, if a platform is able to consolidate all of that information at a single place and allows you to compare all of your investments, okay, you can dissect the data the way you want it. I think Excel has that limitation that so long as you do a single project at one point of time, you can do all the data computation for that particular project. But if you want to compare, I have 10 projects, or I have 20 projects, and if you want to compare the data across those 20 projects, then probably our platform is far better, because it not only allows you to compare data across those 20 projects, but also gives you insight as to what's happening in the marketplace for a project which is very similar to you. So your underwriting assumption on occupancy, you might assume a 70% occupancy, but comparable projects, if they are running at maybe 50 or 100, whatever that number is, it actually allows you to compare as to where your underwriting assumption is wrong, and you can fine tune. So you might make a certain assumption that I should be able to rent out this apartment at $2,000, but the market is at $1,500. So as to why so long as you can justify the difference of that $500, it actually allows you to compare that, no, the market is sitting at $1,500. So if you are going to charge $2,000, what is it that you are doing differently? So the platform allows you to ask those questions, as to why that assumption is at $2,000 when the market is at $1,500. So I guess that limitation is there in an Excel sheet. Unless the CEO looks at the data, it's very difficult for an analyst. And the most important point, if you are a financial investor, I like, we've just backed our first project in US. But if you are a financial investor in a project in India, there is a time gap of between 60 to 90 days by the time the data comes from the developer to the financial investor, that means the event has already happened. And by the time the decision maker receives it, probably the asset has already made its first journey towards being non-performing.
You bet.
What
Yeah.
allows is, the investor can define whether he wants to see the data on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis. And at the click of a button, the investor can exactly make out as to where does his investment stand vis-a-vis the underwriting assumptions that he has made, kind of, so that information gap is bridged by the platform.
Oh man, are you going to make every sponsor's job a nightmare? Do you know how many investor questions I'm going to get if I give them access to that data? They're going to be like, Amy, why is it doing this today? And I'm going to have to hire like 10 investor relations people just to answer questions. No, I'll send them a monthly report. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
It is their money that you're managing, right?
Yeah. I'm totally kidding. I'm kidding. But you're going to have to make sure that you've got really good investors that aren't going to ask you stupid questions. I mean, that's the difference, right? It's I'm all about sunshine and transparency, but there are some of those investors that don't know what they're doing, and they'll take one little thing and run with it. I have PTSD from sponsoring deals. Sorry. I don't know. But it is interesting. I mean, talking about that concept of the asset's performing today, and there is a lag between what's actually happening on the property at any moment in time and what the investor is getting reported on. Obviously, that's just normal course of business. So that might be interesting from a tool perspective if the investors can kind of see whatever you want to show them in real time. I mean, that might not be bad. I don't know, but that's an interesting thing. How do you manage your investors from a standpoint, from a data standpoint? Did you lose me? Did you lose me? Did y'all lose me?
Yeah.
No, I can hear you.
You can hear me? Okay. Deanie, what are you doing from an investor relations standpoint and using your asset management data? What are y'all using?
First of all, we have very few investors. We're privately owned.
Nice.
So that makes it real easy. 3 of us sit down monthly and look at the financials on our assets and make the decisions we need to. So it's not hard. At the REIT world, it's the exact opposite. You basically are living and dying with what you read every quarter from whatever comes out from that REIT, which makes it very difficult to understand what's going on at the asset level. Just, you don't know. You have no idea. So I can't speak to the companies that have multiple investors at the asset level to answer that, because in my 30 years, I've not had to do that. But I would assume that you need good information to share. But I am a believer that quarterly is plenty often enough. But internally here, we do it monthly.
Oh, yeah? You think quarterly is often enough? Man, I never got away with quarterly ever. I had my investors on my butt. They wanted to see monthly reports. But it was, I mean, if you're doing developments, quarterly is totally fine. For sure. Yeah. Quarterly's plenty. But if you're doing acquisitions, active acquisitions, they want those damn monthly reports. Those pesky investors want monthly reports. But yeah, no. It's interesting. Okay, there's a question from our viewing audience talking about if property data is already aggregated in Excel's, shocker, can it be imported into Argus? I think the issue is that sometimes a company is not ready to go through the lift if the transition process is too cumbersome. Or either any situation, if it's Argus or any other platform. If you got all your Excels, and everybody will. So this is the customer adoption problem that most people have. I'm just wondering what's it like for George? Is probably pretty easy for yours, right? You just take all the data and put it in. Sangram, what about you? What do you
So
just?
yeah, great question. As our largest or biggest competition is spreadsheet. Yeah. So what we've done is, as far as data ingestion is concerned on our platform, we have, as I love to call it, we have made it very democratic. So the system is able to ingest Excel spreadsheet. It can read. It can read any kind of input. So what we do is, and I was about to tell you that only that since we are starting something where historic data is on spreadsheet, we had to build in as a part of a design to have the platform read the Excel spreadsheet, which is not too much an effort. In fact, in most of our client cases, we offer as a part of the service to what we call retrofitting. We move all their Excel data to database on our platform. So
Okay.
it's easily done. Most of the new age, I think, are very light and they're very nimble. They can easily read the spreadsheet and move into the database. I don't see that as a challenge. Even though there are multiple labels or plethora of labels, it can read and import the data directly.
So,
There is no problem.
the what I've noticed on the importing of the data from Excel is, especially when you've got a very formula heavy Excel sheet, which a lot of people do, the data, you're not pulling the data, you're pulling the formulas. And sometimes you want the data, not the formulas. And so it gets a little tricky. You can get around it with some
Yeah,
data marshaling stuff and figuring it
true.
out, but
That
still,
is true.
it is a pain in the ass. Another reason why I hate Excel, George.
Yeah.
So for you, if somebody comes to you with 100 Excel files, what's your process like?
We take all of them and put them from the Excel standpoint, put them in our format in each of the individual Excel files, which is all tied to a database. So basically, once you kind of do the first 5, you understand how they code their stuff in accounting. So basically, we do a test, say, let us do 5. Are we on the same page? Am I reading your financials right? Once we understand that, then we can work through the rest of them. But
Yeah.
It all comes down to cost and value. So if you've got a $500 million portfolio, what's the value of having that data?
Oh,
This,
so you're making a decision on what data you keep and don't keep?
No, we're talking about the cost of it to kind of do that work, and basically
Yeah.
we take all that data and put it through our meat grinder. What's the value to the company?
Yeah.
If it's a $500 million portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, relatively
Okay.
influential.
Yeah. So let's talk underwriting and what's happening today, as far as typical challenges and our asset management tools helping. So, transactions are happening. Well, I don't know, Deanie, y'all are probably transacting a lot, but in other real estate sectors, there's fewer transactions happening. And so therefore valuations are getting a little on if you're having to look backwards on what sold to understand what the value is, well, good luck. Sometimes you're not going to have that in certain markets. And also like, getting up to date. Are you using your asset management information, and are those assumptions really correct as far as insurance costs, repairs, CapEx, all that kind of stuff? Is it still good, or are there challenges there?
There are challenges, but first of all, from a market standpoint, medical hasn't had that many transactions in the past 3 years. We're picking up in 25, but one of the things that a lot of us look at, Revista collects a lot of data about transactions in the medical world, and they do it by geography and overall for the U.S., things like that. So we can stay within a quarter or two of current information for the transactions that are occurring. And we look to them versus many other data sources, because they really, and most of us in the medical world know how they collect their data and understand it. So it works very well for understanding market. But after that, I mean, it's more an art than a science. I mean, it's just clearly that if you are deciding the cap rate and the projections out into the future. I mean, I've been in the meetings where I can make the numbers anything you want them to be. It's, you just have to feel good about what you're doing when you're acquiring. But that's the data source we use.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, okay. I mean, that's cool. Okay. So what other challenges are you seeing insurance kill some of your deals?
Sure. I've got issues right now with what's going on in Florida. I mean, it's horrible.
Yeah.
What's happening now compared to last year's is really a challenge. I mean, it's continuing to get worse. And I would guess the state's going to have to step in even further on commercial, just as they've done on residential. They've really tried to help out in residential, but I don't know what's going to happen to commercial in Florida. The insurance costs are just out of sight. The second thing is on development is construction costs and tariffs. I mean, it's a game right now of trying to figure out what construction costs are and working with GCs, with general contractors. So that's a challenge. The last one is property taxes. Property taxes, and I think they're going to just, given what's happening with some of the changes in this big new bill or big nice bill or whatever this bill is, the challenges that creates at the state level is only going to make our property taxes worse in some states. And we've got some states where property tax is higher than the rent. That's ridiculous.
That's crazy town. Yeah. It's kind of an interesting thing. I think the states that figure out that if they can lower their property taxes, and I don't know if they have, and I didn't draw the connections between the OBBB, whatever that thing's called, how many B's, there's lots of B's, and the property taxes. So that's kind of interesting. I'll have to research more on that. But if it does impact that, no matter what you lower the interest rate to, deals still won't pencil, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of an interesting thing. I can't, somebody's gonna have to do something. But if a state gets wind, like, hey, there might, it might be a boon to certain states if people will start developing there because they can, I don't know. Florida and Texas.
I won't mention this state, but there is the problem also, and it's a municipality, not just a state, where tax credits and various tax incentives are provided to developers, and they usually last just about the term of the lease. So what happens is it makes it very advantageous to go into a new building for a while until that burns off, and then you get hit with the property tax. So what happens is that tenant moves on to the next new building. And now you got a vacant building, and it's a continuous cycle. There's one state that is just horrible, and it just encourages tenants to move every 10 years or 15, however long their lease is.
Yeah, there's no stability in that, and it's almost pointless at that point. Right. I mean, yeah, for sure. That's crazy town. From George, on your clients, what are they seeing from besides insurance is wacko crazy? And are your clients mostly in Texas, or where are they based?
Nationally. They're
national. Okay. So from using your software, from taking your data and applying it to new underwriting models, what else are what are the other challenges? I mean, I get tariffs are the tariffs, and one day they're this, and the next day they're that. But what else were you seeing from an underwriting challenge?
We don't do any underwriting, so we are not in the underwriting world.
Yeah. Do they not use your data to do their underwriting models?
They can use our data. I don't think we're there just yet, but basically we don't do any underwriting for our company. We have partners that do underwriting, but they are welcome to use our data to help them with their underwriting assumptions.
Yeah. Okay. Sagram, are your clients using it for underwriting, taking your data and processing it towards,
In India, yes. US, we're actually developing or almost, I think, completed the development of underwriting model, where it factors all of these, variables which you mentioned, and that's to my previous point, then allowing the platform allows for the what if analysis. They take all the variables, stress, all the possible. I think the current model which we have developed almost for US client is almost 20 variables, which will expand as we keep on adding more and more clients. But that's what we do. But you're right, it's very difficult to predict the go forward. How the insurance is going to come up, the property tax, etc., etc. So early days yet, but I think the way I'm looking at it, as we get more and more training data, I think it's maybe I think the model also will get better and better predicting those variables. But
Yeah.
what helps in our case that since ours is more real time, more proactive, you really don't have to wait for a month end or a quarter end. You can immediately stress test moment the change happens, etc. So that's the advantage. But yeah, it's still not perfect, honest submission. But I would
Yeah.
say we are on the right track.
Yeah, I think most folks who are underwriting, I think this should be. I don't know. The only reason why I want AI to do an initial underwriting is because lots of folks who underwrite, it's human error. We follow some old myths, or we're not keeping up with the assumptions that as they're happening. This doesn't happen with Deanie Taylor, by the way. He's always up to date. But some other real estate investors might apply older tax rates or older cap rates or whatever it might be,
Yeah.
inflating their returns because they're
True.
just not. And so that's the one thing, another reason why I hate Excel. And the fact that if you can have some sort of model or something that is constantly, hey, in your market, the latest whatever, and just put it in front of somebody, like power through data. I think, and
Yeah.
Excel doesn't provide that, but I think,
True.
and what I would like to see, and this is my utopian Amy world project, is that we have, the asset models or whatever people are using somehow that they can take that data and apply it, and then, use it for underwriting their next deal. And I smaller investor, medium-sized investors don't have the fancy Argus and all those
Yeah.
other things. I think
True.
I think having other tools available to other real estate investors is beneficial, right? But I think that's one place where AI can really help is testing
True.
your assumptions, stress testing your stuff, saying, hey, you forgot about this in this area. Did you not know that you're going to have windstorm insurance too? Did you forget? Those
True.
kinds of things, right?
So I think completely with you, sorry. That is what I think we are doing. And in fact, our target audience in US is a mid-size of players who don't have access to sophisticated platforms. And AI, in a way, is the way I look at it is democratizing information. So
Mm-hmm.
we do have started using, I would not say AI, but ML-based models currently
Yeah.
to kind of take that. But yeah, completely with you on that. I think that's really the way forward, where at least all the information, rather than being taken on heuristics, has to be driven by data. Right now it's at least real estate underwriting is generally, I've seen most of it is very heuristic. I think very low percentage is really backed by data, and that is what we are trying to change. And more importantly, since our platform looks at any asset holistically, right? So that also helps us to develop a better underwriting model because we are looking at really a 360-degree information about that asset, financial, operating, and ESG compliances, all put to one on a single platform. Otherwise,
Yeah.
most of the models tend to look at part of the asset, and thereby you sometimes, not all the time, tend to miss certain important factors like you mentioned before.
Yeah. That's interesting. So, where do you using, Deanie? Where are you using AI?
Well, we've talked about this before. I think the obvious place is entering all of that information in and using AI to predict around leases,
Yes.
things like that. The other is, and also looking at what needs to change in leases over time. From a legal standpoint, working with lawyers and things. I think we're getting to the point where a lot more is known about how successful we are in negotiating various lease terms that we don't keep track of, and AI is helping in that area. That's by far right now the biggest use of it.
So,
It's not in capturing how things are changing in insurance costs and predicting the future. I wish we could, but
we are trying to change that a little bit. I think the insurance companies are starting to use some interesting tools as well. And then we do have like this kind of coalition happening inside the council around insurance. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But are you using it to, like, some of the AI tools are predicting path of progress, and like you're able to get parcel data and really cool information about population growth and different things. Are you using AI for that?
Yeah, there is we work with a company that is able to pull data from various sources, and really you can predict down to within a mile of what's happening in that location into the future, both on medical uses, what providers are doing, and also from a reimbursement standpoint. And you can then project out so that you're not just looking at traditional demographics, which really is kind of old school. But this allows you to go down to within a mile of an address and really look at what's changing. So it's better than zip code data.
So are you able to see, like, okay, so the age is getting younger, so they're going to need more like predictions on, they're going to need this type of healthcare versus that type of, so that's, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. Like more kids.
Then you know what kind of providers to put in the building at that location.
That's interesting. So if it's younger, it's more sports medicine. If it's older, it's different. Okay. That's cool. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. I mean, you can use data in unique ways. Yeah, for sure. I mean, so similar for data centers, they look at different things. For multifamily, they look at different criteria, different things. That's super interesting. That's super cool. Well, look at that. We made it. The hour is up. I can't believe it. This is such a fun conversation. And George wanted to go for 3 hours, 3 hours in a rumble about Excel. And I was like, I'm sorry, buddy. We only got an hour. We can't do this for 3 hours.
We did in an hour. So I think we have a great conversation.
We did. It was fabulous. All right. So if you would share, somebody would like to get a hold of you, Mr. Birchlaw, how could they do that?
LinkedIn would be the best. It's George Birchlaw, or you could follow our company, RE Analytics.
Very cool. And Sangram, how could someone get a hold of you?
I think same, likewise, LinkedIn, we do have our company as well, trueboardpartners.com. Yeah, the other way to look at it, but LinkedIn is the best place to reach out to me and Nandubai.
Okay, great. And Deanie?
Oh, LinkedIn is by far the best way. Landmark Healthcare.
Landmark Healthcare. Great. And I am Amy Palvido. Join the U.S. PropTech Council, and we'll see y'all next week. Thanks for coming.
Hey, thank you so much, everyone. Great chatting. Thanks so much. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good day, guys. Bye.
Bye.